Hey, Hello. Welcome to Reclaim Within, the podcast, or welcome back. Or maybe I should say welcome back to me. Let me just say this. I have wanted to keep going. I really did. I have not been ready. I have not felt integrated inside of myself to actually keep moving forward with this podcast. But I've really wanted to. And what I've been moving through has felt so cataclysmic, and we're going to talk all about that today, that I needed to give myself space to be super insular, like inside myself. And it's been a really beautiful gift I gave to myself to actually let myself just be inside myself. And integration is the most important thing. No matter what happens in life, I will die on that hill if we do not allow ourselves to actually integrate our experiences, whether they be beautiful, amazing, joyful experiences, or whether they be really difficult, tough, painful experiences. If we do not give ourselves that space, or if we are not given that space of like time and reflection and embodiment and to be able to actually be in process, we're not letting ourselves be fully human. And so if you do not integrate what you live through, you can't actually ever speak to it either. So it's been a long time since I released anything. And I am finally feeling like I can have this conversation. So here we go. Buckle up. I hope you're ready. My prayer for this episode is that you walk away with a deeper understanding of grief, not as something that is painful or something that we should avoid, but as something that really can transform us when given the space and when given the ability to be held and witnessed. What I am learning so deeply is that grief has the ability to actually help us embrace vulnerability beyond anything else I've ever experienced. It also has the ability to help us let go of any old identities that are not in alignment that with the highest version of ourselves. And gosh, has grief been the best teacher to see life with clearer and more compassionate eyes. The clarity that has come from letting myself just experience such a deep level of grief, it's been next level. Here's what's been happening. I believe my last podcast episode went out on 12/12. I have experienced since that date a series of losses in my life that started just around the time that last podcast was released. And these personal losses have triggered bigger releases in my life, and the depths of the grief that I have been able to move through or to let myself feel has felt so much larger than just my own personal experience. At times, I feel like I've truly touched something collective, something that I believe so many different people are actually carrying right now. We are living in, I'm really enjoying actually how the collective, I'll say this first. I'm really enjoying how the collective has all of a sudden woken up to Chinese astrology, even more so than Western astrology. I believe I was at the airport and I was walking past a Starbucks and they had the Fire Horse Chinese astrology on a mug. And I'm like, wow, when something has seeped into the collective consciousness to the point where Starbucks is putting it on its products, that's something that's integrated into the collective. So I find it really interesting. I feel like there's a message in that people are getting on board for the first time in a long time to the transformation or the changes that are happening around us, and trying to find something to connect meaning to it. We as humans are meaning makers. We want to understand. We want to have words to connect to the living experience that we're having. I think a lot of loneliness and a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety comes from the inability to actually put words or be able to speak to, formulate concepts around what's actually happening in all of our lives underneath. And so I think things like astrology and Chinese astrology and human design do such an amazing job of giving us deeper context to put to the things that we're actually all feeling. And when so many of us are feeling it, it then gets caught up into more of the collective consciousness, and it ends up on a Starbucks mug. Anyway, I digress. I am on this tangent because this year is the fire horse year, and last year was the shedding of the skin of the wood snake year. I had some of the biggest shedding happen in that last couple of months of this last year. It just so happened to align perfectly with the Chinese astrology, which I find so fun and fascinating. What came first, right? The chicken or the egg? Who knows? But it felt really in alignment, which is the word I feel like for this year. I just keep feeling like this year, the word is align, align, align. Like we need to find whatever that means for us, to find that alignment, which is something I feel like I've been moving through so intensely. And I don't think I'm alone in that. A lot of the messaging that I'm receiving while being inside of my grief, like the things that I actually am able to speak to right now, is that I've allowed myself to actually go to places deeply into myself, into those feeling states where I've noticed that there is so much grief work to do. Like there is so much grieving to do. It is so easy to get almost caught into that cycle. It's so deeply woven into the fabric of our lives. Loss really truly is everywhere. There is loss of loved ones. There is loss of certainty. There is loss of identities, of families. There is a huge loss of the ways of orienting ourselves to the world that once maybe felt stable, but the illusions or delusions, they are breaking apart. I've studied astrology for so long, since I was 13 years old. Neptune and Saturn are sitting right next to each other right now in our astrological cosmos, and it is a perfect symbolism of what this is. There is like a shaking underneath our feet that has been shifting, and it's destabilizing so many of us. It's happening in the external world, and you can see how it ripples back in. Because of my own personal losses, I've been able to not just sit with my own grief, but I've been able to truly sit with that reality. The weight of it can feel insanely overwhelming, but my whole life's work has been about reclaiming within. This is what I speak to, right? Is how we can't fix things out there. If something out there seems like it's bugging you, or it's messed up, or it's breaking out there, you can't change what's happening out there, but you can actually tend to what's happening inside, right? There's that you have the ability to actually go inside, sit with yourself, identify who you want to be and how you want to respond to the world around you. And so instead of what I think happens for a lot of people is we run from the feelings. A lot of people, I've done a lot of work to be able to sit with myself inside of these deep, deep feelings that would be labeled as negative. But instead of running from the feelings, running from what feels difficult, I have been working on finding my edges and surrendering even deeper into the experience. Now, that doesn't mean I don't flail, and that doesn't mean I don't go to anger, because anger is usually the primary emotion. That's usually the protector emotion. Underneath the anger, so much grief, right? And anger can feel like a easier thing to touch because it's more mobile. It can move. Oh, so I've been like titrating, right, between that anger and that grief and that anger and that grief. And so something I have learned during this time is that grief does need movement. It actually requires movement. I can see how easily it is that we all can get so lost inside of it, or that we don't even want to touch it, because it feels like if I go there, if I let myself feel the grief, whether it's for myself or the collective or both, I will fall into it and I won't be able to get back out. There's like a feeling of fear that if I let myself feel this, I'll be trapped, or I'll be stuck, or I will never come back out, right? I'll collapse. For me personally, community support has been so insanely important. I have done acupuncture, chiropractic care, gentle movement, physical body work. I've had so much support from really beautiful, fabulous people in my life and facilitators in my life who have been just a witness of me. And, none of these things has actually taken any of the grief away, which is wild. And a lot of times I wish it had, but it has helped it to actually move through my body, because what I'm learning more than ever with this is how much grief gets stuck inside of us. And it has a way of actually hardening. But when we actually let the grief move, when we let ourselves have the feelings, when we let ourselves be supported, when we let ourselves be held, the movement is actually what teaches us. The movement of my grief, the allowing myself to be vulnerable and held and have it be like witnessed and cared for, is the thing that's actually giving me all the teaching. All the wisdom is in letting it move, is in actually getting really clear that I'm not holding it like clutching it like a teddy bear, but actually letting it move through me. The visual I've been having is being at the bottom of an ocean floor and just letting myself be thrown in the waves and tumble with my grief. And what I have learned is that grief is not just a personal experience. It is something so vast that it touches all of us and it actually connects us all. I've also learned that this is one of the deepest ways of being initiated by life. Grief is an initiation. It is during this time of this initiation that I have actually come out the other side feeling like I see what matters. I see what matters to me. I see what I actually want to put my energy towards. I see where I want to give myself to. And I see the places that are out of integrity for me and out of alignment. Things I have done for years. All of a sudden, at the edge of my grief, as I move it and I move it and I move it, I see what's actually out of integrity for me that I haven't seen. Grief has been the most beautiful gift of clarity, but it's only in actually letting myself be witnessed and letting it move through me that clarity has come. I see now that grief is a sacred rite of passage that every human being will encounter at some point in our lives, and often more than once. And we don't talk about it. We don't speak about it. How right now my heart aches for the lack of conversation that happens, because we don't know if we should, and we don't want to overwhelm somebody, and we don't know what they need from us, and we don't know what we should say. It's like, and I get it. I totally understand. My one piece of advice is just let the person know you're thinking about them. Hey, just want you to know I'm here and I'm thinking about you. That's really all that's required. And if you think about them every day, tell them every day. Or even say, I don't actually know what to say, but I want you to know I'm here. I want to talk about it if you want to talk about it. Those are my little tiny bits of like, let's keep talking about it. I haven't been able to put this episode out there because it's felt like too much and it's felt like too personal. But I felt like if I talked about anything else, it would be insincere. And that is the opposite of what I want to be in the world. Okay. A book that has really, really helped me sit with this understanding of grief. It's really helped me so much. I highly recommend it. It's called The Smell of Rain on Dust by Martín Prechtel. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right. It's Prechtel. And in it, he actually writes about the relationship between grief and praise in our overculture. One of the insights that struck me most deeply is that our inability to grieve properly is actually tied to our inability to actually praise life. So he writes that grief expressed out loud for someone that we have lost is actually the greatest praise that we could give to them. Grief is praise because it is actually the natural way love honors what it misses. So when I read that, something in me just softened. I understood from that place that grief is not just pain. It is actually love continuing to speak. For me, it's been very somatic. It's been a very somatic feeling state experience, but I think for others, it can show up in different ways. So grief has a way of asking us questions. It asks us, will you let me take you? Will you allow me to unravel you, to wash away the distortions that have clouded your vision and strip you of who you thought you were? Or will you fight the waves, clinging to the shore of who you once knew yourself to be, trying to remain unchanged by those tides that are actually meant to reshape us? We're not supposed to be the same on the other side. And so my experience is that there's no real escaping the initiation. I mean, you can bypass it and you can try to like just disconnect yourself from the feelings, but whether you like it or not, it's going to lodge itself in your system. And so grief arrives whether we're ready for it or we're not. And it takes the time it takes. But within that process, there is also an invitation to literally be reborn, or at least what it has felt like to me is I'm just becoming shaped into someone that is more real, more attuned to these deeper truths in life, to the deeper paradox of life. Through the grief, I've also felt like how grateful I am to have life. What a friend and I were talking recently about how we both are getting better at holding the paradox. And we were reflecting on how it is possible to feel the sweetness of life while also allowing the sorrow and the loss to exist at the same time. But oh my gosh, the presence that it takes to actually hold both of those, and the ability to be in that discomfort and also see the beauty, it takes practice. Because grief, it strips us down. It has stripped me down, and it has pulled away illusions. And I've learned that if we let it, it will clear the path for us to actually see the world and ourselves much more clearly. And it's not just about the sorrow, right? It's about the depth and the clarity that comes from being cracked wide open, from being left with more questions than answers. There was a moment this last December where I could feel myself really resisting the grief. And I could feel how easy it would be to close my heart. It would have been so easy to just clamp it down and turn bitter and angry and to just let resentment grow inside of me. Something became really clear for me, and even in that moment, hate and bitterness are easier. At least they feel like they are. Because that bitterness feeds a self-righteousness and a moral superiority. It creates a feeling of vindication that the ego finds so very tempting. It allows us to feel right and make others wrong. But it is very black and white way of orienting to the world, and it ultimately actually traps us and keeps us stuck. Whenever you find yourself in a black and white place, know that is a very young place in our psyches. And so even though it might feel easier in the moment, bitterness does not actually move the grief. It becomes a band-aid over a festering wound. So instead of turning away from the pain, even though I instinctively wanted to do that, right? That young place in me wanted to turn away from it. I know enough. I've done a lot of work on myself. I've worked with a lot of people in psychosomatic experiencing situations. I knew I needed to turn toward it. So I have been letting myself, and I continue to let myself, turn towards the grief and allow myself to weep and surrender to the experience. And I've learned how profound of a teacher grief can be if we let it. I have seen what I have avoided. I have felt places where I have previously numbed. I have recently witnessed places where I used to go to a freeze fawn response. And by letting myself unravel and feel the depth of my grief, I have actually had a lot of clarity around when I go to those freeze fawn places and how I can actually connect with myself and hold myself with more grace there. And overall, turning towards my grief has actually allowed for me to face what I've ignored or what I've tried to ignore. So it is some bitter medicine, and at the same time, it's such a beautiful opportunity for growth. There is an opportunity for old stories to wash away and for a deeper understanding of what it actually means to be human. Because to be human means we are here for the entire human experience. We are here to be alive inside of all of it. When we surrender to grief, we are not giving up, even though sometimes it really feels like we are. In many, many ways, I think it is actually the most courageous thing that we can do. The nuance is it's a surrender. It's not a giving up. And a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, but I think you'll resonate. To let myself surrender has been a very scary thing. It has brought up fear in my body. And the story is like that. If I let myself feel it, I'll just give up. But it's not. It's so much more than that, right? So allowing ourselves to actually be reshaped by grief, I think for all of us, it can actually open a door for something really, truly remarkable. We get to be more human. We get to be more compassionate. We get to become even more whole. And it's not about losing ourselves in the sorrow, and it's not about doing it all by yourself, and it's not about allowing the grief to overtake you or take you away. It's about allowing it to reveal the truth of who we actually are beneath the surface. You've heard me say this before, maybe, if you've been here before, but the heart is vast and it is capable of holding all of it. Pain and beauty, loss and hope, all at the same time. And the deeper we let ourselves actually into our own hearts, the deeper we let ourselves flow into all of our deeper feelings, the deeper I've allowed myself to be taken into those places with my grief, the more it actually feels like I'm being baptized by life itself. Something in me has been dissolving. Dreams and identities and expectations have been pulled apart. The caretaker people pleaser in me has completely unraveled. And yet through that unraveling, I feel more connected to the sacredness of life than I have ever felt before, even though some of those days it didn't feel like I was going to get there. My teacher, AB, once had said to me something that has stayed with me, and it lives rent-free in my head. He said, when life humbles you, let it. And right now, my life has been nothing but humbling. over and over again. And so if grief comes into your life one day, or if it already has come into your life, and it will, I hope you remember this. Don't resist it. Let it take you. Let yourself be supported. Find a team of people who can gather around you, whether they be body workers, acupuncturists, your loved ones, people who care about you, and allow for grief to smooth out your rough edges, to unravel your illusions, and to wash away the falsehoods that had kept you from seeing clearly. Because within that surrender, within that sacred initiation, you may just discover a version of yourself that is actually more real, more alive, and more aligned with the heart of the world than you ever knew was possible. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here with me today. Whew, it was a lot to share. This has been a buildup. I feel like I've wanted so badly to speak, but I have not felt integrated, as I said before. So this was a big episode for me. I thank you for your grace as I move through this season and find my way back to sharing with you more consistently again. If you've enjoyed this episode, would you please share it with a friend? Share it with somebody you feel like could use a little bit of guidance, a little bit of care, or a little bit of wisdom around what I've learned through one of the hardest initiations that I've ever walked through. Cheers to remembering the humanity and to the unraveling and the becoming of us all. Thank you so much. Bye.